I guess we'll wait for him to join.
Okay. I know he's Eastern time, but I'm sure he knows it's a.
Uh-oh.
Huh?
I said, uh-oh.
Oh, did he? I think that you said in your email it was Central Time.
Yes, I did.
Okay. No, I think he might just be running a little late.
Okay. I don't think Abina is going to be able to attend.
Okay.
I think she has a program tonight on her radio program.
Okay. Yeah, Gus was telling me she has a show. I didn't know. I probably have heard her voice, but I don't recognize the name. So.
I think a couple of times I've even heard her on Gus's radio program.
Mhm.
I think that was her. I'm not sure.
And she may not be using her name. Some people seem like they use a lot of numbers, 808, 909.
Oh.
So because
Right.
Gus told me that he would probably recognize her voice if he heard it. But I don't know her by her name. Oh, while we're waiting, anything you care to share about? I found some things in the Trojan Horse book that have to be changed that I thought were somewhat confusing or incorrect.
What'd you find?
There was something I don't remember what page it was on, but it said something about white people. Let me see if I can find it. White people, but practicing racism, are not. Sometimes they do it deliberately, and sometimes they do it. Sometimes they do it just acting out of their own programming. And it was almost like I was excusing it. Let's see if I can find that thing.
It's almost like you were what? Excusing it?
Yeah, like I was trying to get people to empathize with them, and I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion around that. They've even coined a term or a phrase that they call unintentional racism. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's been a while. It's been around for quite some time. I've been to workshops where lots of white people use that phrase. I mean, it's racism. They say it's racism, and people are mistreated. Non-white people are mistreated, but the white person that's practicing racism really don't know that they're practicing racism.
Yeah.
And they get non-white people to buy into that.
Right. And that's going to come out. Here it is. Some whites deliberately practice racism while others are simply acting out of their own faulty cultural programming. Overcoming a lifetime of racial superiority programming is just as difficult for whites as it is for blacks to overcome a lifetime of racial inferiority programming. Yeah, that's coming out. There's some, that's just going to come out.
What page is that on?
Page 33. So I'm trying to keep track of some things that, because we're going to edit it or revise it as soon as we get through with this second one. And so I'm just trying to come up with some things that I think are incorrect or at least confusing, and to take them out. It's like right near the top, like I think it's like this. It's the first paragraph on that page.
Oh yeah, Some whites deliberately practice racism, while others just acting out their own faulty cultural program. Yeah, because and white people can get a lot of non-white people to buy into that because it's just with us, it's a whole thing about being conscious. See, we even say that about other black people. Well, that black person just not conscious. It's not a conscious black person. And so when they start talking about unintentional racism, they just plug right in. I think somebody may have joined the call.
Okay.
And exited. So when their concept of unintentional racism plugs right into that, conscious, not conscious thing that black people talk about, even in reference to each other. They say, well, white people, we're not conscious of doing it, So, I mean, it fits right in,
Mm-hmm. Guess that makes it okay.
Yeah. It's like, hey, don't blame us. If we're doing it, we don't know we're doing it. They never talk about stop doing it,
Mm-hmm. They'll never get to that point. So that's coming out. So if anything else has occurred, cross your mind, something that's really just goes against the codification, something that's going to, be contrary, run counter to what we should be saying. Please let me know, because this is not, this is supposed to be helpful.
Right.
So.
Okay, we could swap some emails about some things. I guess, doing a lot of typing, sometimes that's.
Yeah. What you could do if it's a lot of typing is just tell me what page it's on.
Oh, okay.
And, a couple, just maybe a couple of references of what page it's on. And matter of fact, what I could do is if you ask for some specific pages, I could just PDF it over to you, and then you could just mark on it.
Okay.
And then, like circle some paragraphs. So, let me know, what kind of stuff, that you are, section by section or whatever. And hey, Pam, could you PDF me some pages, the following pages, and I'll just PDF the pages that you want to comment on.
Yeah.
And that, save you from having to type it.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Because I know it's a lot of typing. Typing whole paragraphs of what somebody said. Jesus Christ. That's a lot of work. A lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all I can say is, this young man, geez, he did not expect to get all this help. I hope that's him.
Boston.
Welcome to the call, Foster. This is.
It's Boston. Like the city.
I'm sorry?
Hello?
I said it's Boston like the city.
Oh, Boston. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Hey.
Hey, Pam.
Hi. Okay.
At this point, I'm not sure if anyone else is going to join the call, but if they choose to do so, then that's great. Hopefully, they'll jump right in and into the discussion and offer solutions as they see fit.
Sounds good.
Pam and I were just discussing some aspects of Trojan horse, death of a black nation. So, as I understand it, you had a situation that occurred on the job that
yes,
you were seeking assistance.
Yes. Well, basically, I'm a manager of a retail store in Boston, and it's predominantly white, and I have one non-white cashier, and basically the supervisor, he was having her merchandise wind chimes, and he basically told her to merchandise it, like put it onto the rack by tone, high and low. And she was like, I don't think she saw it as a joke, so she tried to do it. From my understanding, I wasn't physically there, but I heard about it from the non-white female, and I also heard about it from all of the other employees, from my boss to the other cashiers. So, so basically she just merchandised it from high to low in terms of tone, and then the joke just started going around and around, and it's still going, and it's been like a month. Yeah. So it's a pretty difficult situation because, like, I'm an assistant manager, so it's like if my boss is, if he thinks it's funny and everyone else thinks it's funny, and I feel uncomfortable about talking about the situation. I talked about it with the non-white female, but in terms of like bringing it to everyone else's attention, like, hey guys, the joke isn't really that funny anymore, or what have you, I just feel kind of uncomfortable because I feel like it's gonna turn into a race issue just because we're, two non-white people, or the only two non-white people working there.
Okay. Yeah, it's already a race issue. I mean, it was a race issue before you start working there.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's how the business of the world is run among people. Of course, many non-white people or black people don't look at it that way, but the white people who practice racism, white supremacy, they run the business of the world in that manner, and they mix their work with their fun. So while they're mistreating you, in other words, that's fun to them to mistreat non-white people. So it's not surprising that they're running around the office laughing about it. That's not surprising at all.
And it feels like just me knowing that, it makes it even worse because it's like I know that me not saying anything is not good because they know that I know. But at the same time, it's like if I say something, it's going to turn into, Anton's an angry black man. And he doesn't want anybody to have any fun.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what you say.
Mm.
I mean, that's really what it boils down to. I mean, on the job, I've just simply asked questions about when is it a good time on the job to mistreat someone?
Mm.
And then just let them answer the question. Just real simple questions. Just in passing or standing in the hallway talking to somebody about, because it's going to come up if everybody's running around laughing about it.
Yeah.
It's going to come up. And when they can get the black people to laugh about it too, then it's really funny to them.
Mm.
Or I'll ask, on a job, when is it a good time not to help somebody that needs help? Let them answer the question.
Wow.
Real simple questions, straightforward, to the point. You don't have to say nothing about race. See, as long as you're talking about producing justice, they know that that's against racism. They know it automatically. Yeah, we can't mistreat nobody. And hey, what is the fun in that? See how that works?
Yeah. Wow. I never really thought to ask those questions just because, I mean, when you're in the moment, you just in your mind you're just getting so defensive already because it seems like you already know what they're gonna say.
Right.
But with these questions, it's pretty straightforward.
Oh yeah. And many times we react to it because we don't really know what to say or what to do.
Right.
Yeah, many of us don't, and then we become really emotional about it, and we'll wind up saying something that we really didn't want to say, or doing something we really didn't want to do, and the next thing you know, we're looking for a job.
Exactly, and that's why I kind of kept my mouth shut and just,
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's any number of questions that can be asked about it, just to get the person you're talking to understand that what's being said or what's being done is unacceptable. But the position that, we should take is, hey, I'm just looking to solve a problem. That's what we all should be doing on this job, unless I've been misinformed.
I remember hearing you. I'm sorry, Sam.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember hearing you tell that story about sitting in the office and looking her in the eye and saying, what problem are we trying to solve when you had an issue with a non-white female.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, the white person will take an entirely different posture once you refocus, the conversation. Because just like them telling a joke that, black people would say is a racist joke, and they trying to get the black person to laugh about it, in essence, go along with what they're saying and what they're doing. They do that throughout the day.
Yes.
In different situations or whatever, when they're in the process of mistreating a non-white person to get other non-white people to go along with it. Don't say anything about it or agree with them with what they're saying or what they're doing. So this happens all the time, all day long.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But once you refocus that conversation and start talking about problem solving, then it's a different posture. Welcome to the call. Someone just joined the call?
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams. Gus T. Renegade.
Welcome, Gus. I'm on the phone with Pam. Pam's here, and Boston is here explaining the situation that's transpired on his job.
Welcome, Gus.
Greetings, sir.
Please feel free to jump right into the discussion and offer any solutions that you'd like to at any time. Welcome to the call. Did someone just join the call?
Yes, sir.
Who am I speaking with, please?
Jay.
Welcome, Jay. Gus T. Renegade is on the line, and as well as Pam and Boston.
Hello, Jay.
Thank you.
Greetings, Jay.
Hello.
So, Boston, you were explaining what has transpired. What has been done about it? Has the non-white female done anything?
Well, she had talked to me a couple days ago about trying to have some type of staff meeting because she feels like everyone's talking about her to her face as well as behind her back. So she basically told me I want to try to hold a staff meeting so I can air out my grievances, and that's all that's transpired from there. I've been a little hesitant myself about, like I said, talking to people about it, just because I feel as though I think I would be able to. I don't think I would be able to communicate what I need to communicate without getting emotional about it. So I kind of it's been reserved about it, but nothing's really happened yet.
So she hasn't scheduled any meetings or anything like that?
Not that I know of. I was off today, so I'm not sure. But I haven't heard anything. So I don't know. In a way, because she told me last week. So in a way, I think she either just forgot about it or it doesn't really bother her that much anymore. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Very unfortunate. But it's gonna happen again.
It is, and it happens all the time. Even with other situations, it's like she's always like the butt of the joke. and it kills me inside. It kills me because I'm just like, I'm not sure what, how I can help, without, messing up my situation or without making it look like like I said earlier, like a race issue or what have you.
Right.
I don't know what to do. And she's a very nice girl. She's very sweet. She's very nice. She does what she has to do. She's not a problem at all. She does exactly what she needs to do. She's a great associate. But people are just, messing with her for no reason.
I think it's significant that they're still laughing about something that happened, you said, weeks ago?
Oh, now it's been a month.
Right. So that kind of telegraphs clearly that they're practicing racism, because a joke would just be a joke and then you move on. But they're showing definite malicious intent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just being passed around. And it's funny because everyone is running up to me, like personally. Like everybody's running to me and telling me what's going on as if I don't already know. Like I'm the one that assigned her that project. You know what I mean? Some people around, the supervisors around or what have you. But ever since then, everyone's been coming up to me telling me the same story, as if they think that I don't know already.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of attacking you, kind of backhandedly.
It
I
seems
think
that
it's
way.
real, yeah, because they're making you witness it and kind of co-sign on it. But I would say this: whatever you do, it's not your fault. So, it's the white people that are doing it. So make sure you don't take on the guilt of it.
Yes.
Welcome to the call. Someone just joined the call.
Hello.
Hello. Who am I speaking with?
This is Kim.
Welcome to the call, Kim. I'm not sure if I can remember the names of everyone who's on the call. Let's see. It's Gusty Renegade is here, and Pam is here. Boston is here, and Jay. Hope I didn't miss anyone. Boston is giving us an account of a situation that transpired on his job, and he's looking for solutions, so feel free to jump in and offer any solutions as you see fit.
I had a quick question for any of the callers. Now, I just have a feeling that if I try to use some of these techniques in terms of saying, okay, when is it good to mistreat someone, I have a feeling that I'm going to get some type of sarcastic answer back, which I believe is going to force me to become emotional because, the situation is important to me.
Right. Is that Boston asking a question?
Yes.
All right. Well,
so I'm just asking, what should I do if I, get a sarcastic response when I, ask the person, okay, when is it good to mistreat someone on the job?
well, the first thing that I would do is to expect a sarcastic response. That way, when it happens, I won't feel disappointed about it. I would also, keep in mind that, I'm talking to someone who finds it fun to mistreat people based on color. You gotta keep that in mind at all times.
I got you.
Because if you don't, then you wind up fooling yourself. You never want to be in a position where you end up fooling yourself about what it is that you're looking at. So when you're asking questions like that, you should have an objective for doing that. Don't just ask them just to be asking them. Or trying to get someone else to see something. A lot of times now white people will do that, especially with white people. Try to get them to see that what they're doing is incorrect. Now, they're already having fun with what they're doing. We'll spend countless hours in debates and things of that nature, trying to get white people to understand that they should not be doing what it is that they are doing when they are mistreating people based on color.
This is Gus. I missed the first few minutes of the conversation, so I think I am, or there's no think, I am missing some of the pertinent details, so I might be a little bit confused, but if I'm understanding it correctly, there's some racist suspects on the job, non-white female. They are ridiculing her, making some jokes where she's the butt of these jokes. Is that the gist of what's happening, and we're trying to figure out how to correct this? Is that the gist of what's happening?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Williams' suggestion of just preparing for these suspected racists to be sarcastic if you make an issue of this, right on point. I would totally expect that. And one of my goals, if I was going to try to solve this problem, would be to take all the fun out of this. And I think white people have created a climate where it's easy to do that. All you would have to, and this is just my suggestion, I could be totally wrong, make real clear about this. This could be totally incorrect, but I think this would suck all of the fun out of that. I would approach it like, hey, I would approach it like, there have been a lot of incidents of workplace violence in the news, and I'm just really concerned about that because I just saw that shooting, and it just looked horrific. And I want to do everything I can as an employee of this company to make sure that we never have anything like that. And I really think we should all try to do the same to make sure we're not doing anything that could contribute to any sort of malice or harm in the workplace. And I think that means we should be really careful about joking people. Wouldn't you agree? You can end it with a question, too. I think with the climate, and you don't even have to mention Omar Thornton or anything like that, just with the climate, I think you could say that most people, it would be difficult for them not to co-sign on that and say, yeah, we should try to do everything we can to make sure that sort of thing is not happening. Maybe we should rethink all this ridiculing of other employees. Does that make sense? What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea. It changed, like Mr. Williams says, it changes their whole posture. And this one, I think it changes it instantly.
But you sound like a concerned person now. You don't sound like a confrontational person. You sound like a concerned person.
Right, somebody that's looking to get the problem solved.
Right.
And like Gus said, exactly the way that he laid it out. Now, if you do that with someone who is in a position of power on the job, then it can come down from there. You won't have to go from person to person to person to person.
Good idea.
Saying the same thing.
Great idea.
Now, of course, you said even your manager thinks it's funny.
Yes.
Right. So I wonder if your manager's manager thinks it's funny.
My apologies. He will not find Omar Thornton funny.
Yeah, that's right. And that happened about 2.5 hours away from where I live.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
fresh in their mind.
Oh, I would use that.
Yeah, that's
I
fresh
would
in their
bring
mind.
an end to all of that.
And that doesn't make
Wow.
you the person that's got an issue. That means that they've got to think beyond you. So you shouldn't even be a target in terms of bringing that up. I mean, it's not about you. It's about, we don't want anybody coming here shooting this place up. Do we? We're all in this together, right?
I worked a job one time with a white male who would he would say things against non-white people, but the way that he would do that is to say, you know what, I don't think we're meeting our diversity objectives. That was his favorite line. You know, if we were in the process of hiring people, but we were hiring a lot of non-white people, then, you know, he would stand up in a meeting and say that. You know, I don't think that we are, I mean, this is a company that's all about inclusion, isn't it? See? So, staying away from what you said earlier about making it a race issue, I mean, you could even use that. If your company offers seminars and workshops on diversity, I mean, you can use that for an example. The new word is inclusion. People are moving away from using the word diversity and starting to use the word inclusion, which really doesn't make any sense at all either. It makes about as much sense as the word diversity. Because everybody is an employee. I mean, what do you mean by included? Everybody is an employee. So
I think even with taking the approach like Gus laid out, I think that would have an effect such as that. I think also it would be logical to expect the race at your job to refine and then look for other ways to continue the mistreatment.
of course.
But yeah, it's not going to stop. So.
But it might make them fair, though. You know.
Yeah, and I don't think I would go so far as to say it wouldn't stop either. I've seen it stop in reference to me on the job, you know, but then it'll pick up against other non-white people.
Yeah, that's the point I was making. Simply is that it may take on other forms.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Very unfortunate.
But I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book in the first place, so that as many non-white people who choose to do so can arm themselves with a method. I mean, there are many, many different, methods, meaning things to say and things to do, to neutralize that behavior. And the book only really talks about one. But if you're reading that book, and if she's reading it and she's planning to do anything in reference to the book, that especially the chapters on counter-racism jiu-jitsu, I want to let you know right up front that you're not going to make any friends with white people by doing that. I mean, the book says that as well.
And you know what, Mr. Williams, I think I need to get over that. I really need to get over that, Like, I grew up in Boston. Ain't nothing but them out here, And I just think I really need to just start, becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep thinking that things are going to change, and they don't, and then I end up driving myself insane.
So do you think that she's serious about having a meeting?
Honestly, no, I don't think so.
No.
I think she was just upset that day or what have you, and yeah, I think she was just upset. I don't think because I think if she was going to do it, she would have done it already. I've seen her on 2 or 3 occasions after she originally said that, and I haven't gotten anything. And I've even kind of hinted about it, and it's nothing. So I don't know. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was actually shocked that she said that she was going to do that initially, just because we're extremely outnumbered. So I was just very surprised at the courage that she had to even want to do it. But yeah, I don't think she will, unfortunately.
So what are the next steps for her?
In regards to the situation, or in just
Yes. Do you know if whether or not she's looking for a job somewhere else? Or?
Oh no, she's not going anywhere.
Okay.
I mean, I mean, to me, it just looks like she's gotten over it. It just looks like, she's talking to everybody and this and that, and she's gotten over it from what it looks like. I haven't gotten over it. I still, I get upset every time. We're working together, and the same people are around, saying things behind her back or what have you. I'm still bothered by the situation, but she's okay with it now, it seems.
You suppose they're doing the same things about you?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my goodness, absolutely. They do it right to my face. I was telling Pam one day that I have a lot of older associates. I mean, folks that have been there for about 40, 50 years, and they're in their 60s or what have you, and a lot of them are so-called Italians. And they'll speak Italian to me, but it won't be, full sentences. It'll just be random words. And sometimes when they say certain things to me, I go and I look them up, because I'm like, I want to know what they're saying. At times I do ask, but on one occasion, one of the women called me stunata, which means stupid. And when she said it, it kind of made sense, but it just happened so fast that I didn't have a chance to process it until later on. And it's like after I ended up finding out, I was like, well, maybe it's too late for me to say something. Like, what am I going to say, 2-3 days later? So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that they're saying things behind my back. I'm pretty sure about it.
Well, what happened to her, the non-white female on your job? I mean, that's inexcusable. Giving someone incorrect information about performing their job. That's I don't care how high up you go up the ladder, and the higher up, the better. You might start at your manager, and might say, Well, you know, it was just it was just fun and games. Nothing really wrong with that. You know, go to their manager and say, well, okay, what were the circumstances surrounding it? Because sometimes, you know, people who are new employees, they just get a little haze in it. You know, it's all over with, just fun and games. Go to that person's manager, and they'll begin to ask questions about it. Like, what? What do you mean? Somebody is giving somebody incorrect information. That's working against the productivity. You know, and you go a little higher. Well, what do you mean? Someone's giving somebody incorrect information that works against our bottom line cost and impact schedule. And, you know, the higher you go, the more serious you'll find that people are about running the business. That has been my experience on jobs. And so when I schedule a meeting to talk about something as serious as giving people incorrect information on the job, I tend to invite people who are, as they say, you know, way up the chain, way up the ladder, because they are a lot more serious about the functioning of that business, and that business is profitability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So if she were to have the meeting, do you think it should be there in terms of supporting her, along with, like, for example, the HR rep is in the building, the DM is in the building, and that's the sad part. Like, all of the higher-ups within my store are in the store. Like, that's where their home offices are.
Uh-huh.
You know, so I mean, should I join her along with them in regards to the situation, or
if she invites you?
Okay.
See, that's the thing about, if you're talking about counter-racism jiu-jitsu, the thing about that is, you know, the person who is using that method has to stand on their own 2 feet. There's no way you can support her in doing what she's doing. The white people are not going to let you do it. I mean, really, if they get rid of her, they'll get rid of you.
Yep.
Just the way that they respond to that method is they become focused. The higher ups, you know, become focused on the person that brought forth the critical issue. And so your presence there will, you know, it's going to be meaningless. If she invites you, of course, then come to the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, but she should be the person who does the talking at that meeting, and who presents the problem. And I was involved in a meeting once, and my manager, who was he was a white male, he was an older white male. I mean, he was really timid, and I called a meeting about a performance evaluation that I had at the time. I've called meetings about that on several occasions, one of which is even in the book. But this particular time, which is not any of the ones that are in the book, it was myself, my manager, his manager, her manager, his manager. You know, it was that the HR director. You know, it's me and 5 or 6 other managers that are all above me. And my manager attempted to try to take up for me in a meeting. This is a white guy. And 5 minutes into the meeting, nobody was talking but me and the most powerful person in the room. Nobody else was talking. It was almost as if they weren't even there. I'm asking him questions, and he's writing them down. And see, the other people, they were just interference. I mean, my manager's manager, which is a female, when I asked the question about the highest rating, the highest performance rating that the company offered, you know, why it was I didn't receive that rating. And she said that that rating is just for people who walk on water. That was her response. Now this was being recorded. I mean, we in a room talking about the Constitution of the United States, and this is her response. She's just running interference. She really doesn't have any power to say or do anything. But I invited her so that when the most powerful person in the room gives their judgment, that judgment is handed down right then, and everybody gets the same information, so that everybody knows what's taking place. And I responded to her by asking her a question. I said, well, historically, I've been told that there was one person who walked on water. Does he work for this company? And she didn't have a response to that. Because I wanted to find out, what do I have to do in order to walk on water? Does this person work for this company? If so, give me some contact information on them, and I'll talk to them directly.
Does he offer training?
I'm sorry?
Does he offer training if he does work for this company?
Right. That's why I was taking the conversation, Yeah, does he work for this company? If so, give me some contact information. I don't have to sit in a room with all these managers who are scaring me to death. I can go directly to that guy. And he can explain to me how to receive the highest rating. Now, see, really she was perjuring herself. Because other people were receiving the highest rating, none of which could walk on water. So, see, after I asked her that question, she stopped talking altogether. And these are the kinds of things I try to get people to understand who are talking about, using counter-racism jiu-jitsu. There's no way that anybody can explain to you step by step by step what to say and what to do, because the the situation, Dr. Wilson describes it as dynamic. The system of racism and white supremacy is dynamic. You know, there's no way that I can say, okay, well, say this. And then they're going to say that, and you say this, then they say that, and you. No, because you never know what they're going to say. I never dreamed I'd be sitting in a room with 5 managers, and one of them would say that I had to walk on water. I never dreamed that would happen. Can you imagine that?
I could not.
And so it's. I hope I wrote the book as plainly as I could so that people could read it and understand the logic. That's the reason I used examples of the logic of how to do things, how to say things. Because ultimately, it's just going to be you against them. Now, of course, other people can give you advice and whatnot. I mean, people on this phone that's giving you excellent advice already. You know, but when you're faced with them and it's just you and them, you're going to have to figure out what to say and what to do. So it's really, you know, critical that you get a real good understanding of how the concept works. Seems to be pretty quiet on the phone. I hope I'm not responsible for that.
White people are to blame for that too. I was going to echo Mr. Williams' point, though. I mean, and I think I said something that was in the ballpark to that on a recent program, that just you can't really prepare, you know, for everything that racist man and racist woman will throw at you. And a lot of that is because their system is the foundation of it is deception. When you have somebody that is not, you know, bound by having to say something that's true, I mean, you can come up with anything to say. So, I mean, you just can't prepare for that. So you just got to, you know, figure out how to use logic and figure out the best thing to say to get the most constructive result in any situation. And I think you can pick that up pretty quick. Mr. Williams' book will help you a lot.
And something that Gus was suggested to me earlier today was, Neely Fuller's book, and even the Counter-Racism website. They've got a lot of audio on there. You can Google Mr. Neely Fuller MP3 files, and you'll pick up a lot of logic just listening. You know, if you don't have a lot of time to read, or you can do both. But one easy way, and what I've done is I've downloaded stuff off of c.o.w.s. I'm going to convert some of the CDs that I got, you know, Mr. Fuller, that I got from counterracism.com, and convert them to MP3s, and then you can listen to it on your MP3 player. You can listen to it on your, you know, while you're riding around in your car going to work. So you can absorb a lot of code just listening to what Mr. Fuller says, from listening to what you've gotten from counter-racism.com, from what you've gotten from c.o.w.s. You can listen to that, and it just becomes kind of like osmosis. You start to absorb the logic, and you start to become more logical, and then, you know, you start to have a better understanding. That's something I'm going to work on, too. It's becoming more codified. That's just a suggestion for everybody who's looking to become more codified.
I had a question. This is Boston. I had a question. It's funny that you said that, Pam. I pretty much do all of that. Ever since I heard of Neely Fuller, I would say about 6 months ago, that's all I can listen to now. Like, I don't even think I listen to music anymore, really. It's just either the c.o.w.s, Neely Fuller, I'm reading a book or doing something of the other. But I think I'm still struggling with the idea that I cannot go out of my way anymore to try to please white people.
Awesome.
And I'm still trying to get over that hump.
Well, we're at war, so we're going to have challenging moments, and it's not going to be easy because we're in a system that demands that we subjugate ourselves and demean ourselves. So that struggle is a normal feeling, and I don't think there's any way around it. It's going to be something that you have to constantly, work on, and that's okay because we've been struggling anyway.
Right.
We weren't codified with struggling. So.
Let's say one way I deal with that. I think Mr. Williams might have mentioned it on this on the program tonight, and that's just to be sure I have an objective to when I'm interacting with a white person. I'm not just, it's not frivolous. It's not time to talk about whatever. I mean, I have an idea, a plan in mind, and an objective for having any sort of contact with this white person. If it's on the job particularly, strictly business. We're not talking about birthdays or Mother's Day or whatever. And then you kind of doing that, and over time you just you kind of fall into a habit of, oh, okay, I'm only supposed to deal with them in a certain way. I'm not just supposed to interact with these people like I'm interacting with anybody. I'm interacting with these white people for the purpose of figuring out how to get rid of white supremacy and solve my problems in the process.
Yeah, that's extremely important. I mean, that kind of focus goes a long way. Otherwise, you'll find yourself making them feel good, that you feel good, that you're in a bad situation. I mean, think about that. Because a lot of us do that.
Yeah.
We want to make them comfortable, that we're comfortable, even though we're in a bad situation.
It takes that psychological distance. You really gotta put some distance, otherwise you get sucked in. Just like what Ed was saying, you get sucked in, and your agenda becomes their agenda, or their agenda becomes your agenda. And that means that your agenda gets crushed, what it should be.
Heavy.
Yeah.
And it takes time, for some people. Some people can do it overnight. Some people can't. And there's no, that's no bearing on any one individual. I mean, people are just different. All people have the ability to resist certain things, but not at a certain time, and not at the same time, and also not within the same measure. So, I mean, people are just different in that regard. That doesn't mean that any one person is better or worse than anybody else. People are just different. So if it takes you 5 minutes, it takes you 5 minutes. If it takes you 50 years, it takes you 50 years. Whatever the case may be. And no non-white person knows the torture and the immense pressure that other non-white people go through on a daily basis. You just don't know. And so you just try to give people the help that they need when they need it. And seek that help when you need it. Because of our show-offism, we tend to judge each other. But I mean, really, we should get away from that. as best we can, as fast as we can. That is really keeping us from doing great things. And so you don't have anything to feel embarrassed about, even in reference to how long or how short it may take you to get beyond that. And you don't know until you know. That's something I have to keep telling my daughter, you don't know until you know. Stop beating yourself up about not knowing something. You don't know until you know. Now, when you know, if you know and you still, don't want to do, then, that's something you have to live with, within yourself. But she would constantly beat herself up about things that she didn't know. I should have known that. No, you know it now. When you know, that's the time to take action.
Now, when you say no, do you mean just knowing like a random like fact or a random or is it like a random behavior? Like I should have known that was going to happen, or that this white person was going to mistreat me.
Well, if you're talking about white people practicing racism, white supremacy, that's the reason why people refer to them as racist suspects. If you come across a white person who you suspect mistreats people based on color, then, that is your suspicion. Now, that may not be everybody's suspicion, but it's your suspicion. And then, once you suspect that person, then you begin to function from that suspicion. Now, if you suspect that they do and say, well, even though I suspect they do, I still don't care. I'm going to be around them as much as I can. We're going to play softball together. We're going to go on picnics together, whatever the case may be. Then, that's on you. When I say no, have an understanding of what you're looking at.
I wonder if it's very confusing for other non-white people, individuals who are informed, like they have an understanding of the logic of why you should be suspicious. At minimum, you should be suspicious of every white person that you think is capable of practicing racism. When you understand the logic of that and they want to go and hang out with people, it's very confusing for non-white people to hear someone come and tell them, you should be suspicious of all white people. Check out Mr. Fuller's work. Check out Dr. Welson's work. And then they see you at the soft game with Becky and Ted, and you're all going dancing and stuff. It's very confusing. It sends mixed signals. Someone who is already very disoriented about what's happening on this planet. I just wanted to throw that in.
Boston, you there?
Oh yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
What Gus just said is extremely important as well. I mean, if you're talking about, clarity, you're supposed to have clarity about this, clarity about that, but your behavior is confusing to other people. That's going to raise a red flag in reference to character. You said earlier that you had a copy of the book and that you were reading the book. Did you have any questions regarding it?
Not as of yet, to be honest.
Not as of yet.
No.
Do you have a copy of Mr. Fuller's book?
Yes, I just received it yesterday.
Oh, okay, that's excellent. His new book or his first book?
Oh no, I haven't. I the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I just received that one, and Dr. Welsing's ISIS papers, I've received that like a week ago. So
oh, okay.
I'm trying to take my time and really, sit down and read it, because I've listened to countless episodes, and I've also started your book, and I really and started listening to Neely Fuller's audio clips and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's heavy. Whew. Especially for someone living in Boston and just being white identified. I mean, I went to Catholic school for 12 years. Like, it's all I know. It's all it's all I see. And I always thought there was something wrong with me until now. I'm 25 now.
Yeah. Yeah, many of us like that.
You have to give yourself credit, because growing up the way that you did, the fact that you're trying to find your way out of this fog says a lot, and it's very encouraging. And I wish I had started when I was 25, but then again, the internet wasn't, what it was. So I think it's a great age for you to be embarked, to go on this journey. And you have to give yourself credit for even attempting to do it, because it's, you've grown up with an entirely different point of reference. So, yeah, it's wonderful. I'm really thrilled, personally.
I mean,
amen. Amen. It's definitely the road less traveled. So it's not a whole lot of non-white people you're gonna come across, at least in my experience, that are looking to get a clear understanding of how people are functioning on this planet. So.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think? Do you think people are just complacent, or they're just, do you think some people know and just say, oh, well?
I think it has a whole lot to do that the white people who practice racism, white supremacy, have figured out that if you can confuse people and maintain that confusion to a certain degree, then the people will be so less likely to do anything significant that will stop the flow of what you're doing, which is white supremacy, that, it's not going to be too much to worry about. So it's mainly confusion-based. And for me, confusion is mainly driven by words, the way words are used. And so I was going to ask you, but you don't have to answer it now, just, your understanding of the term race, if you had a definition for that, and kind of, if you wouldn't mind sharing that somewhere down in your program.
I wouldn't mind doing that. I would need a couple minutes to really think and give you a well thought out answer.
No problem at all.
Is Kim still on the line? I guess she's gotten off. I think in the past, yeah, is that Pam?
I don't know. I was just going to say I've learned. I'm sitting here, and I just learned some. I mean, I'm learning something myself. I was just thinking out loud. You can go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything. I was hoping that Kim was still on the line. I think in the past she had some questions for me, or questions about the book. I wanted to make sure that I got her questions answered, but I guess she's gotten off the line.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, sir.
There was an audio in the counter-racism rotation. It might still be there. I believe you were speaking with Josh Wickett and some other non-white people about racism, white supremacy. And I think the conversation, at least the recording, was maybe, 75 minutes. And I think you were on the recording. I think you were talking about a person who may have been racially ambiguous, someone that there might have been some confusion about whether he was a white person or a non-white person. And if I'm correct, if my memory is accurate, I think you said something to the effect that this person might have been trying to function like a white person around you. Is this sounding familiar at all?
Oh, yeah. We had that was probably several times that took place. We, Josh Wickett knew some people who put together a workshop called Ending Racism 2020. Does that ring a bell to you?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. It may have been in reference to that. There was a group of people who said that their goal objective was to eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy. They say it just like that by the year 2020. There was a male in that group who said he was a Jew. And when asked if he was a white person, he said no. He said that sometimes when he's around non-white people, he functions as a white person. But he's really not a white person. But what he was saying essentially is that non-white people treat him like he's a white person. That's essentially what he was saying. You know, they don't ask him if he's a white person or nothing like that. They just act like they act around white people when he's around. You know, that's one thing that non-white people got it bad. I mean, we assume somebody is white.
Would it be more accurate?
Say again?
I was just going to ask, would it be more accurate to say that he functions from time to time, he's able to function like a racist around non-white people?
No. There was a distinction.
Mm-hmm.
There was a distinction in that group between a white person and a white person that practices racism, white supremacy. So he said he would function as a white person, but not mistreating people based on color. I mean, we got into detail about exactly what it is he was talking about. And essentially what he was saying was that the non-white people treated him as though he was a white person, that he didn't have to mistreat nobody. They just acted like white people was around whenever he was around. You know, they scaled back on the use of the term nigger, for example. You know, the black people wouldn't call each other nigger when he was around. You know, but what he was talking about was it was solely the behavior of the non-white people. That's what he said. He was functioning. And I asked him, I said, in order for you to function, you know, if you're functioning as an auto mechanic, I mean, you got to be repairing some cars. I mean, there ain't no way around it. I don't want nobody working on my car that ain't functioning like an auto mechanic. That's just the way it works. I mean, so the car not going to fix itself. You see what I mean? So if you functioning as a white person, I'm sorry?
I was going to say that I understand what you're saying for the car. The car isn't going to fix itself, but I think refined races train their subjects to victimize themselves. And I was thinking this sounds like some non-white people are being mistreated, most likely just because of his presence. Like he doesn't even have to do the mistreating. The system is so refined, non-white people will mistreat other non-white people for him. Like, that's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Well, he gave some examples. You know, we had a meeting. Josh set up a meeting. This is when I was in Baltimore. Josh set up a meeting in Washington, D.C. I mean, we sat there and talked about it for hours. And he stated, you know, because when I asked him, I said, now, when you say function as a white person, what is it that you are doing? Not what other people are doing. You know, what are you doing when you function as a white person? And he could never say. He never said.
So he doesn't know what he makes the statement, but he doesn't know what it means?
Yeah, he was talking about non-white people.
That, to me, that is one thing he is doing right there, which I think is a key aspect of racism, white supremacy. In terms, I'm sorry?
No, go right ahead, please.
Oh, okay. One thing to me, just based on what you shared, it sounds like one thing that he did. He recognized that these victims thought he was a white person. And I think if you do that and you don't make any effort to correct that, you're functioning like a racist. I even think that's in the code book that Mr. Fuller says that you can be classified as white if a significant number of non-white people think that you're white. And this sounds like exactly that. These victims thought that this was a white person. And perhaps again. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please. I'm sorry.
Okay. I was going to say, just based on what you said, if he's recognizing that these other non-white people, victims of racism, they think he's a white person, and he's conscious of that. That's one thing that he did. He recognized, they think I'm a white person, that's huge in the context of white supremacy. Non-white people, they think this is a white person for whatever reason, and he doesn't do anything to correct that. That's huge. That is in my opinion, that is a conscious act of deception. You are functioning like a racist. That's a conscious act of deceiving non-white people about racial classification. I mean, that's huge. That's on Mr. Fuller's top 6, racial classification confusion. That's it right there. When you get these racially ambiguous people and they withhold that information from a non-white person, in my opinion, that's what makes them so dangerous, because at times, and I've heard these people tell me that from time to time they are able to function like racists. meaning they are accepted as white. I've heard people tell me this. So I don't know. I mean, does that make sense, what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Oh yes. And that's the reason why I took it to function in terms of what he was doing. See, I wanted him to tell me. I didn't want to just make, a bunch of blanket statements, about him or whatnot. I wanted him to tell me how it is that he functions as a white person just because non-white people think that he's white. I mean, what does he have to do? If you function and is doing something, when you are functioning, you are doing something. That's just the way it works. I mean, you functioning as a doctor, you got to be healing somebody. Or an auto mechanic, you got to be fixing some cars. So I said, well, okay. He never would say. I said, okay, no problem. Okay, how do you, as a white person, eliminate racism and white supremacy when you're around all these non-white people? So you either for or against it. So I wanted him to tell me that. And he never could say. He never would say.
Just, again, what I would interpret just based on what you shared, to me, what he does in function, I consciously withhold information from non-white people. To me, what it sounds like, most likely to the detriment of non-white people, because I suspect if these victims thought that he was a white person, based on the pattern that I've seen, some non-white people were most likely mistreated because of his presence. I have seen that before repeatedly, have participated in it myself. So, yeah, that to me, that sounds like someone who is consciously functioning as a racist. I make a conscious, willful decision to withhold constructive information about racial classification to the detriment of other non-white people. That to me sounds like what he does. And it sounds like he does this, or at least had done this more than once. So,
Oh yeah, and I mean, we took it the whole gamut. I mean, I asked other white people that were there, is that a white person? I asked other white people if he was a white person. And they said, yep. I say, okay, so we started talking. All of us were talking. Josh was there. Bilal was there. We sitting around at somebody's house. I don't know who. Was sitting around talking about eliminating racism, white supremacy. See, that's what they like to talk about. They don't talk about producing justice. Because, see, to do that, you got to help somebody. See, they want to talk about eliminating racism, white supremacy. So questions were asked about white people. And he would attempt to answer. So I'm doing the calculations in my mind. I'm saying, oh, now you're going to think he's going to function as a white person around me. I say, okay. So every time he would attempt to answer, I say, you can't answer that question. That is a question that only a white person can answer. I mean, to the point where he got extremely upset about it. I mean, every time he would speak up, I would speak right up. I say, no, you can't answer that question. I'm sorry. And a white person will come in and they'll answer the question. And, it got to the point where he was extremely uncomfortable. He was sitting right next to John Bilal. And John might seem like a pretty nice, calm kind of guy. But, I mean, John, and somebody had said something, and he clapped his hands real loud. It was something about, it was a white female that was there that wouldn't say whether or not she was a white person. And Josh kept asking her, and eventually she said that she was. After John, he looked like he got a little upset. He clapped his hands real loud. He said, if you are a white person, you should say you are, saying it with, quote unquote, some authority. And the guy, just kind of looked at him and just kept his eyes on John. I guess he didn't know what was going to happen next. But I've never known John to get so upset that he would, strike out at anybody or anything like that. I've never known him to be that way. But he's sitting right next to John. And so it was only so upset that he could get, even though I kept cutting him off. Because he'd look at me, look at John. I mean, when you're in those kind of talks and whatnot, if you really pay attention to what everybody is doing and how they react to what's being said, it is amazing. I mean, you're talking about increasing your knowledge of how the system works. It's amazing to see how things work and then analyze it and talk to other people who were there, other non-white people who were there who know something about counter-racism code. And so that is the person. And I'd say what you said is absolutely correct. And that's the reason why I started asking him, well, how does he function as a white person in the elimination of the system? And he couldn't say that either. He went into talking about Jews and how they were persecuted by white people and so on and so forth, and, more confusion. But that's where he took the conversation.
It sounds like a core aspect of counter-racist code and really, self-defense as a non-white person victim of racism is to make sure that you always ascertain whether or not you're talking to a white person. And if you have any confusion, devise whatever codification you need to clear up that confusion, whether it's asking other white people, asking other non-white people, doing some more research yourself. But it sounds like a key aspect is to make sure you determine, is this a white person? And once you become clear about that, keep in mind whether or not you are, in contact with a white person or a non-white person. Is that accurate?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I said it sounds like a core aspect of counter-racist code is to make sure that you ascertain whether or not you are in contact with a white person or a non-white person. Just, for your self-defense as a victim of racism, you really need to ask that question, are you a white person? And if you're confused, ask other non-white people, ask other white people, develop whatever means you need to clear up that confusion so that you can, deal correctly with this person when you're in contact with them. This is a white person or this is a non-white person. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I would say that's absolutely correct. But it depends on the non-white person and when they deem it necessary in order to do so. You see what I mean? If you're in Japan right now and there's some white people in some helicopters that are offering to take you from the place where you are, where there's no food, there's no water. There are aftershocks daily. Things are falling apart. And they are offering to lift you from where you are and take you to a place where there is food and water. The aftershocks are minimized, where you'll be able to, quote unquote, survive. That's the word that they're using right now. When they are lifting you up into that helicopter and there is a person inside of the lift with you, you have to decide at that point whether or not you want to ask that person if they are a white person. Now, I agree with you completely that because confusion is the order of the day, I mean, you want to seek clarity every chance you get. so that you are not confused. But it's up to and I say that a lot, I've been told too much, but it's a choice for the individual non-white person to make as to when is the best time and place to ask that question. Are you a white person? Now, I ask it a lot, an awful lot. So each individual non-white person has to decide for themselves when is the most opportune time to seek that clarity. When does it matter to them? Now, for me, it always matters to me. And so that's the reason why I ask the question a lot. But I've talked to other non-white people, and they say that there are circumstances where it has little value to them. And so I don't try to convince them that my way is better. Also, you mentioned something earlier that another non-white person told me that you said it's that you think it's in the code book. Well, if enough non-white people consider a person to be a white person, then that person is a white person. Someone else told me that years ago, and I asked them, where is that? Because I don't think I read that in the code book. So if you can, point me to where that is in the code book, I'd be appreciated. I'm not putting you on the spot right now. I'm just saying,
okay.
during your studies, if you happen to come across it again, please keep me in mind. I'd like to know what that is.
Will do. I'm in arm's reach of the book. I will see if I can get a page number for you.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's true, then following that logic, one would have to say that white people are not the only people who have the power to classify based on color and make it stick. I brought that up to Mr. Fuller. When the non-white person told me, Mr. Fuller didn't say much in regard to it, as I recall. I mean, it was years ago. It was back in 2003, I think it was, 2003 or 2004. And I don't remember Mr. Fuller saying much in response to it.
We can ask him again. He'll be on the program this Sunday. So, I would be curious to ask him again. Maybe I can get a page number before Sunday. And, I would like to ask him. Hey, what do the people on the line think in that situation? I think that's important because, I think I suspect that there have been and will continue to be situations like that where you might have a quote-unquote racially ambiguous person who is aware that these non-white people think, they think I'm a white person. And they make a conscious decision to let them continue to think that they are a white person. What do you think about that circumstance?
Wow. I think, as far as I'm concerned, I think like what Ed was saying was they don't want to talk about producing justice. I just think that for whatever reason, they are operating as they're running interference, and I think even if they attempt not to run interference, I just think it goes against their nature not to run interference. They don't want to answer a simple question. Well, that's just a deceptive person. You can't do anything with a deceptive person. I think they feel threatened in their very fiber of their being when black people start to become codified or black people start to try to understand what is happening to us, I think they instinctively feel a threat. And so personally, I don't see any purpose to having them participate, period, other than for us to get information about what they're doing. But I see no point to it. I think I draw the conclusion it's a total, absolute waste of time other than when they provide information. If they don't provide information, then their participation is useless or counterproductive.
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Maybe you can state it again.
What do you think about a person who is racially ambiguous and that person makes a conscious decision to withhold information from non-white people, the situation being the non-white people think this person is a white person and they function on that belief that this is a white person. The individual in question is aware, oh, these non-white people think I'm white, and they consciously withhold the information that, oh, I'm not white. They consciously withhold that and just allow those non-white people to believe that this is a white person. What do you think about the person who is, being perceived incorrectly as a non-white person? What do you think about that person? What do you think about that person?
I guess, think about them in regards to, a situation.
Are they functioning? Are they functioning as a racist?
Mm-hmm. Are they functioning as a racist? It seems like in their interaction with non-white people, they're attempting to represent the white team, if nothing else, and sounds like that could definitely lead to confusion and mistreatment of victims of white supremacy. I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, what I guess the details of that situation and how, the non-white people at the time need to interact with such a person. I think having white people around in that situation, and not necessarily having them around, but being able to locate one or two or three or whatever to bring clarity about this person's classification can be a step in the right direction to clarity.
Okay, but just the situation, there is no clarity. This person in question has made a conscious decision to withhold information from non-white people. I'm not going to tell these non-white people that I am also non-white. I'm not going to tell them that. I'm going to allow them to think I am white, and I'm going to allow them to function with each other and with me on the belief that I'm white. If that's the situation and there's not going to be clarity, there's no white people to clear this up, all the non-white people present think that he's white and they're functioning with him in that manner and with each other in that manner. What do you think about the person in question in that situation?
Well, that would be a white person. And so it sounds like them being a white person in that situation, sounds like they got the ability to practice racism.
I agree. I think it's racism, white supremacy, because they're consciously doing it.
Now, see, that's something Pam and I were talking about early on in the program before a lot of people joined the call. What do you mean by consciously doing it? Can somebody unconsciously practice racism? See, really, we got to pay attention to the words that we use, because when we say stuff like that and white people hear it, then they begin to use terms to further confuse us. They got a term right now that's called unintentional racism. This was Pam and I was talking about, unintentional racism. Can you imagine that? Well, white people are saying, hey, it's racism. We might be practicing it, but we don't know we're practicing it.
I don't I don't get into discussions with white people about conscious and unconscious. I just point out, I do make an effort to highlight when I have evidence that a white person made a clear decision to mistreat someone on the basis of color. I do make an effort to highlight that this was not something where, oh, it just happened, the results didn't. No, this white person set out, and you have evidence this person made a clear decision to mistreat someone because they were not white. I do point that out, but I don't really get into the conscious, unconscious, because at the end of it, and white people know this, the default is set to racism, white supremacy. It doesn't matter whether white people are going out and saying we're going to go and kill every non-white person, or every act is, yes, I'm going to harm non-white. The default is set to racism, white supremacy. You don't even have to be thinking in that manner. You can just be going about doing your day as a white person, and you'll be practicing racism, white supremacy. And white people know this better than victims do. But in this context, I say conscious because, at least what you shared with me, this person recognized, they made a decision. Wait a minute, the non-white people here think I'm white. They acknowledged that, they recognized that, they were aware this wasn't something they were just twiddling along, and in the days, I didn't eat, what? They think I'm white? No, that's not the case. Was this person was aware. Oh, they think I'm white. I know I'm not white, but I'm not going to share that with them. I'm just going to let this ride and let them continue to think I'm white. That's very important in this situation, to point that out, that this was a willful decision. That's what I mean in this context, and I do think that is very significant.
So it's better to use knowingly as opposed to conscious?
Was that the question? Anyone specifically?
Right. I'm trying to figure that out as well. Can you give some examples of the question that you asked?
Well, just in regards to what we were talking about in terms of, because I think Mr. Williams, you said something about, what do you mean by conscious? Because they can just turn around and say conscious or unconscious. Is it better to use the term knowingly as opposed to using the term conscious in terms of the situation that we're talking about?
Oh, I don't ever use either.
Okay.
Yeah, I refer to the person as a racist suspect, and it's based on my suspicion. If I suspect a person is able to practice racism, white supremacy, then they're a racist suspect. One thing that I do, that I started doing years ago, is I don't try to get into the mind of white people. I don't try to figure out what it is that they're figuring out. So, I don't really care if they're conscious of it or not. It's happening. People are being mistreated based on color by people who say that they are white. So I don't try to get into their mind to figure out if they're conscious about it. I don't try to get into their emotional context to see how they feel about it. I just don't do that. Now, there are some non-white people who do. They try to analyze white people's thoughts and white people's feelings and, make statements in reference to that. And the non-white people who do that are qualified to do that. If they see fit to do that, then they're qualified to do that. I just don't see any use in doing it. It holds no value for me whatsoever.
I understand.
Yes, I don't really get into that. I refer to them as a racist suspect if I suspect that they're able to practice it. See, once you get into doing that, then the whole white privilege thing comes into play. All these different terms that white people use to try to distance themselves from people who are being mistreated based on color. Not based on race, based on color. Now, they got a lot of terms that they use to distance themselves from that. See, so all of those terms will start to make sense to you. Yeah, you end up fooling yourself. And so I saw early on the need to draw a line in the sand in reference to that. For me, because I'm so simple-minded, you know. I mean, there are non-white people who are a whole lot smarter than I am. You know, so and they may be able to do that. They may be able to keep those things juggling in their mind all the time. I can't do that.
You know, it's just interesting how Gus, when you have that white author, I think Black Melanin Apocalypse, and how they don't really want to answer questions. They don't stick around for the questioning. You have to. It really makes you wonder. You know, you don't really want to give. Maybe I don't know. You just don't want to really, really, really give information because you know instinctively that that's what's keeping you in the position that you're in. That the non-white people don't understand who you are or what you're doing, or that it's deliberate or whatever it is that they need to know to eliminate white supremacy. You know it's not in your benefit. So even though you may tell yourself you have good intentions, it goes against everything that you've been taught and everything that you know. It just seems like it, you know. They just will not give useful information most of the time. I wonder if that non-white, that Jewish male, I wonder if he was sexually involved with any black females.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but we did do we ran an experiment. One that I termed Counter Move 6, where, you know, it appeared that some of that might have been going on, you know, between him and one of the white females.
Oh, the white female?
One of the white females, not okay. There weren't any non-white females there, but
okay, good.
Yeah, it seemed like there was an attachment between him and one of the white females.
Good.
I think somebody might have dropped off the call and called back in. Yeah, I mean, anytime, just like Gus said, anytime, a white person is withholding constructive information. I mean, constructive information that non-white people can use. You know, withholding that constructive information from non-white people, and you gotta be suspicious about that.
Yep.
I mean, you know.
Yeah. Especially when you made the so-called effort to participate. It's not like somebody stopped you on the street corner and pulled you into a conversation that you didn't know what it was about, or you didn't want to, you kind of like waylaid you. I mean, you deliberately go out of your way. So what is your real agenda?
I mean, there's a video on the Counter-Racism website, counterracism.com website, where we were sitting around in a coffee shop.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, we were sitting around in a coffee shop in South Philly, South Philadelphia. And I guess it was, four or five black males and one black female. We were just sitting around talking about counter-racism. White guys came over there and wanted to join into the conversation.
Wow.
And one of the guys never would say if he was a white person.
I remember that.
Yeah, Josh asked him repeatedly, Are you a white person? Never would answer the question. Never would answer the question. Now, what you don't see in the video is a lot of the reactions of the other white people as well. We were the only black people in there. I mean, white people would come and sit near where we were and just sit there. They wouldn't even look at us. Their back was to us. They would just sit there. And then they'd get up and walk away. I mean, there's a lot of things that were going on that you can't see in the video, but hey, you're going to get white people that do that. They just not going to answer the question.
You know, that video was the first video that I watched on counter racism. I ordered the DVD. And,
oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was sitting there, and it was the first experiment I had ever seen, and I think I must have watched it about 3 or 4 times. And it did something to me. I can't even describe it, but it was like I was watching a lady that was sitting there at a table behind you guys, and she was, and I could see that she was pretending. She had a hand up to her head. She was trying to focus, but she knew I could look at her and tell she was listening.
A lot of people missed that in that video.
Yeah, I saw her. You could just see from her body language, at least to me, she looked like she was listening. And the guy just wouldn't answer the question. The 2 guys, the older male and the male that actually engaged you later on. And I remember, you know what the thought was? I remember thinking, I really like these black guys. I had a crush on you and Josh for a while because it was something when watching it just did something to me. I'm serious. I was sitting there and I was like transfixed. I mean, I can't describe the feeling. It was like, wow. You never get a chance to see black men doing stuff like this. You just never see it. It may be happening, but you never actually physically witness it. You know, if you watch the TV, it's just nonsense. If you're out in the real world, people are just struggling, trying to do whatever. But you never really see that kind of interchange. So it was thrilling to me. It just absolutely. I would suggest that everybody take a look at that DVD. It really demonstrated how white people have perfected the nut roll. Man, they just will not answer a question.
Yeah.
I was just going to say real quick that white people are drawn to those conversations too. They see black people, non-white people talking about racism, white supremacy, and they, codified, or at least to some degree, not cursing all out, or just having a mature conversation about that. White people send their troops in to get some intel on what's going on with that.
It's like you watch.
And they. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
I was just gonna say it's like you're watching a bunch of animals sleeping, and then they start moving, so everybody's on alert now.
And they'll start using some of the language. Yeah, I mean, just like that ending racism 2020 thing. I mean, they didn't just say racism, or they didn't just say white supremacy. They used them words together.
Wow.
I mean, they'll start using the language, which does what? It draws us to them. And they'll keep talking about, getting rid of the system of racism, white supremacy, but they don't talk about producing justice. And that's why I took that guy who was talking about he wasn't white except when he around non-white people. That's where I took him. Okay, well, what do you do when you are eliminating? I mean, that's what we were sitting around there talking about. I mean, you got a whole conference, a workshop where you're drawing people in talking about this. You got a goal objective. Man, you set a date.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm sitting there talking to him. Y'all set a date. As a white person, what do you do to eliminate racism, white supremacy? You know, that's the first thing we should be talking about. And after we finish talking about that, I want to know what you do to produce justice. This ain't no social event.
I just wonder why they would even talk about eliminating racism, white supremacy, but be bothered by the justice part. That I don't get.
Oh, but because it's probably, I'm not sure, because I never could get them to answer the question, but it's probably just a way to draw us in to see what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, they want to know what you're talking about. When you start talking about Black History Month, okay, we're going to talk to you about Black History Month because we want to know where you're going to take it. Or you just want to study black people who you consider to be kings and queens. Okay, no problem. We'll help you do that. Yeah. Yeah, they just want to know where you're going to take it. You talking about a march on Washington? A march on, what are you talking about? Hold on now. A march for what? You're using that word justice, but you're talking about a march for what? Oh, I see. When you say justice, you are talking about access to something. Oh, hell, we'll give you access to stuff. And then everybody quietens down.
Because you want
which is just, which is just more evidence that that's what we was talking about. We want to be able to sit in a restaurant and eat with white people, or work at a company where white people work at. We just want access to stuff. Oh yeah, we'll give you that. So now you got black people who are talking about getting rid of. You see, that's the whole point of producing justice. That's really what we should be talking about. When we talk about counter-racism, we should say counter-racism equals the production of justice. Because, see, you can eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, and still not have justice. So what they trying to figure out is, what are y'all talking about? Come on over here. I'm going to use the language to draw you in. Come on, let's talk about it. Let's see where you're going with it. Oh, we talking about nobody being mistreated for no reason, ever. See, they're not going to talk about that. And you could test them on it. You can run that test yourself. And many non-white people who say replace white supremacy with justice are not focused on the last two words of that, with justice. They focused on the first three.
In your view, Williams, what what would be some significant behavior differences in a person not focusing on the first half of that, but not the last two?
Oh, one of the key points is that's all that they're talking about. Eliminating racism, white supremacy. I mean, and I used to be that way. I had to figure that out for myself. I used to that is all I used to talk about. But I had to ask myself, well, replace white supremacy in order to do what? Practice black supremacy? That's not just. That is as unjust. Black supremacy is as unjust as white supremacy. And neither one of them justice. And so I had to change the language that I was using so that the focus is on producing justice. I remember we had a discussion about that on the c.o.w.s years ago, and you'll find it in the archive discussion boards on the c.o.w.s. You have to search for it though if you're interested in it. But there were quite a few of us. There were 2 or 3 non-white females, about 4 or 5 non-white males who were actually talking about the differences between the two. There's a lot of raw data on that website in the archive sections of discussions that we were having that are extremely interesting. So if you haven't visited that website, I suggest if you're interested in doing some research, that's a good starting point. Is anyone else on the line?
Yeah.
This is Pam. I'm still here.
Yeah. One thing I would say, I know for me it was kind of a small stumbling block. The c.o.w.s, that was a great resource for me when I was learning about racism and white supremacy. The audio clips, the counter-racist film reviews, counter-racist book reviews, the forum. Still is a really great resource. But one thing that did kind of throw me off was there are a lot of acronyms, VOR and RWS, WJ, and if you have not read the code book, those acronyms used to really cause a lot of confusion for me because they weren't, like there's no code or place where you can go and be like, oh, okay, this is what this means, this is what this means. So I would say maybe you would want to check out some of those terms to get clarification. I think there's a counter-racist dictionary at counter-racism.com where I think all of those acronyms will be explained. You get clear definitions, but that's one thing that I know that was kind of an obstacle for me when I first went to that site.
That's a good point. I think it was a little of the same for me as well. I think it was the same for me as well when I first. Man, it's been 10 years. 10 years since I first picked up the code book, and I actually didn't even read the code book until I think it was 2005. I started going through it, but I really didn't think much of it.
Really?
No. As a matter of fact, I called Mr. Fuller. And told him I didn't think much of it. I said, Mr. Fuller, you got a whole lot of stuff in here I'm already doing. He said, well, And once he started to explain things, that's what added the dimension for me. The words and the definitions that are in the back of the book. That's what really did it for me. Not so much as the suggestions, but because once you take those words and their definitions and once they make sense to you, then you start to think that way. really, you'll start to think that way and you start to talk that way. I mean, I let Mr. Fuller read. I sent him a copy of the book that I wrote, and said it sounds like him. I said, Mr. Fuller, you got words and definitions in the back of your book that came from your brain. Now, what do you think gonna happen when people start using those words with those definitions? I said, they are gonna sound like you. That's really what's gonna happen. They're gonna begin to think like you. They're gonna begin to talk like you. That's what's gonna happen.
Now, Mr. Williams, when you said that when you first learned about the code, or not when you first learned about it, but at one point in time you were just, talking about it all the time, and it was just part of just your everyday language. How did that affect the people closest to you?
Well, it really changed. Early on, it really changed the way that I would interact with people. I mean, I was like, for example, I was seeing a female at the time, and she didn't much care for it. Matter of fact, I remember her telling me that something to the effect of, well, there you go, talking about racism again. Don't you get tired of that? She said, I get tired of it. I said, you mean to tell me you are more tired of me talking about racism than you are of putting up with racism? She didn't like that either. See, I never should have said that. If that was me today, I would never say anything like that.
Oh, no?
Because my thinking has changed. And so that's just one small example of what not to do. Just a suggestion. Just a suggestion. Don't do that.
So if you had to do that over again, right now, today, what would you do differently?
Oh, I would change the language to more focus on producing justice. I can talk about producing justice without even using the word racism. Yeah, I mean, you can talk about helping people and not harming people, not mistreating people. I mean, you can talk about that all day. As my language began to change, I began to become more focused on problem solving. And I remember I was in a relationship at one time. I mean, that's what it's generally called, relationship, with someone who, when things came up that we considered to be problems, presumably you would think that the focus would be on solving the problem, but that wasn't always the case. I mean, she would say, well, I just want you to listen to me. I don't want you to help me solve nothing. I just want that's what she wanted. She wanted me to sit there and listen to her talk about her problems and not help to solve anything. And, And of course I had to do that. You know. But it was eating me alive, I tell you that. Not to, to be focused on problem solving and to see someone who needed help, but not, and be able to help them and not provide them the help that they need, because, I began to think differently about exactly what is help and what is not help. That's a process, really. If nobody's asking you for it, and you are saying things and doing things, and you consider yourself helping that person, but they are not requesting your help, you end up harming them from their perspective. It's really a tricky thing. Maybe that's not the best word to describe it, but it's best to find out if someone needs help before you jump in and start helping them. I mean, the person who is requesting your help is not going to turn it down.
I see.
Yeah, so it just depends on, what the person is interested in talking about or discussing with you and whatnot. I mean, if they are tired of you talking about racism, white supremacy, then you can talk about something else. But when you start talking about problem solving and talking about solving problems among people of the planet, that racism thing gonna come up again.
I find that ever since I was introduced to Neely Fuller and the cows and Dr. Welsing and you, I feel as though at times I'm so excited because I feel liberated by this that I'm kind of a burden on other people at times, just because I'm just like, I kind of feel like I'm on a high horse, even though I'm still confused, that kind of thing. Like I feel like I'm just kind of, at times I'm just really preachy just because I'm just so excited about all the new information that I'm learning, and I'm just being educated as opposed to miseducated. And I feel like
keep in mind that ain't nobody done nothing yet. See, that's gonna knock you right off that horse. We still in a system of racism, white supremacy. Gus, you still on the line? Well, I guess he must have dropped off. Pam, you still there?
I'm still here.
Pam, it's been almost 2.5 hours and you still here?
I've looked at the clock. Last time I looked at the clock, it was 8:08. And I said, oh, well. It is what it is.
I really appreciate you being on the line.
Well, I appreciate you giving this, hosting this conference call because,
Oh, no problem. I used to do this weekly. And I'm gonna have to start back doing it. And I would put the conference calls in rotation on the Counter-Racism Radio Network. I think a couple of times we even had white people to join in on a call. They didn't say anything, except that, they were on the call and that they were a white person. And then they would, listen for a little while and hang up. But
why don't they say anything? What's the problem? Seriously, you're on the phone and nobody can even see you. If they wanted to hit you, they couldn't even reach you. What are they?
That's an excellent question.
Huh?
That's intel.
That's an excellent question. Why don't you ask them next time?
Okay. Ask them. What do you? Okay, never mind. I don't get it.
I thought I heard Gus say earlier that Mr. Fuller was going to be on his program this coming Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. 8 p.m.
Oh, you are there. Oh, excellent.
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. My microphone was not cooperating when you called out, and I wasn't able to respond. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Sunday,
March 20th. Sunday, March 20th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. We're going to be talking about the new word guide and the scenario if, non-white people, a significant number of non-white people suspect that a person is white. We'll get his feedback on that.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I'll definitely be on that call. I'm definitely interested in what he has to say in regards to that and whether or not he's made any changes in his new book as regards to that. Not the word guide, but the suggestions that's due to come out hopefully this year. May not be till next year, but hopefully this year.
Oh, Gus, this is Pam. Don't if you were going to send me the order form.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
just a reminder, because I'm going to order it this week. Yeah.
Is it already in print? Or are they shipping out copies, or is this a pre-order?
They're shipping copies. I should have my copy in hand tomorrow. I know Mr. c.o.w.s, a.k.a. Dr. Muhammad, I know he already has his copy.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah, there's an order form online. You just print the order form and include money order, send it off, and, depending on where you are in the world, I guess that'll, determine how long it takes to get to you. But, the order form is up, and I'll put a link to the order form in the description for the Sunday broadcast. So I'll get that done. I'll email it to you, Pam, and then I'll get it in the description, so you can just click that link, and you'll get the information how you can order the book.
That'd be great. Yeah, I noticed c.o.w.s had posted something on the c.o.w.s about the book, and I've spoken to Mr. Fuller about it, but I hadn't. I think Mr. Fuller said that book is over 400 pages.
Oh, wow.
Of nothing but words and definitions. Yeah. So that's a huge undertaking. You can imagine the time and energy that was spent going into that. Not just writing it, but reviewing it, several times and making changes, and oh man.
And he's so precise. So you know, just putting something out and say, well, this will do. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's really great too is that he's doing another book. It gives us a chance to support him, because it's sad to say that a lot of money is spent supporting black entertainers. CDs, movies, and stuff, and how much money is going to Dr. Welsing, Mr. Fuller, Dr. Ben, and all these people who won't be with us forever. Then what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we don't even know how they're living. We don't even know if they're struggling. We don't know if they're in poverty. We don't know. I don't know personally. And that it kind of bothers me, because I'm like, they pretty much devoted their life when and didn't get rewarded by the system, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I wonder, how are they living? Are they doing okay? So I don't know.
Call them up. Ask them if they need some help.
You know what? I think I will. I've never talked to Dr. Wellsine in person, and she has a practice, so I'm assuming, that she's. But I will. I just didn't know if that was, I guess I have to phrase it. I don't know. Ask them how they're doing. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Ask them if they need. As I understand it, in the past, Dr. Wilson has made reference to running into problems at Howard University.
Right.
Holding her institute meeting at Howard University. So, I mean, if you know anybody at Howard University that can help too. I don't know if she's still having those problems. I mean, this was years ago when I was living up that way. When I resided in Baltimore, Maryland, and Arlington, Virginia. She made reference to that. 04